All right, my wonderfully put together presentation. So I wanted to talk about something that I kind of came across about a month or so ago, hadn't really seen before. The background of it was, for those who know me, I spend a lot of time doing CMS stuff. And I had a whole bunch of data that I needed to bring into my CMS one-time load. And I was feeling quite lazy and didn't want to write any code and write a whole bunch of stuff that I'd sort of throw away. And I was trying to look for something that I could kind of use to automate this flow for me. And in my old, addled grey head, thinking of wonderful days of BizTalk and maybe just creating some kind of orchestration to suck all this stuff in from an API, and that'd be lovely. And then I came across this thing called Postman Flows, which is quite a lovely new little thing. It's not very polished, but I thought I'd kind of share what I found about it. I don't know if anyone's actually used it before or had a look at it, but it's been around since I think late last year, heavily beta. So I'm going to kind of go through some demos and kind of go over what it is and how it's all put together. So what are flows? So this flows basically is just a really nice visual way of connecting a whole bunch of API calls, doing some bits, modifying some data, pushing things backwards and forwards. It's essentially, I'm not going to call it no code because yeah, you have to do some codey stuff here and there, but it's a very low code solution to dragging APIs around, connecting things together. If you're doing simple stuff, it actually probably does come out as a no code solution, but you usually have to kind of do a few bits and pieces. You have to know what you're doing in Postman at a kind of basic level before you kind of go and do anything more complex. As I said, it's been around since late 21. I think October, November is kind of when I see things starting to appear in various chat channels and various GitHub repos. There's a really active GitHub community around it, so if you do use it and you want to feedback, which I might do quite actively, then you can do, and you normally get some really, really good response from the team. And luckily the team's made up of users and devs and everyone's got a lot of empathy for each other, so it's a good space to be in. It's all good. And it's currently in beta, which, to use some negative language, means in ways it kind of sucks in places. There's some real challenges which I'll come to at the end. I've got a lovely slide of places where it could do better, like a kind of a school report. What can we do with it? As I said, it's a drag and drop workflow. You've got the concept of blocks. For anyone who has used things like BizTalk or any other kind of workflow designer, you drag a block on, you connect it to another block, a thing happens. And it's quite sequential in the way that it works. You can make requests, you can call any other API endpoint, you can respond to the results on those endpoints, and you can manipulate that data to do other bits and pieces as well. So I don't know, let's say you do a simple request, you want to get just a bunch of strings from one API, you want to convert that into a nice array, you can do that inside flows and then pass it on to the next request you want to make. You can pass on tokens for validation, authorization, all of that sort of stuff you can collect within your flow and use it to pass around, which is quite funky. And it all works in conjunction with your environments, your collections, all of that sort of stuff that if you don't use Postman, you might not know, but if you use it, then you'll be familiar with workspaces, with collections, and where all that data sits. So it's pretty handy in how it works. This, I wasn't sure if the Wi-Fi's work, so I'm afraid there's loads of screenshots rather than that many demos. But this is how simple it is to create a request. Okay, so that block's dropped on there. If I wait for it to go to the beginning, because it's a GIF and it goes on forever, so we all like that. Around you go. There we go. That's going to run as well. I did a great job. But basically, what we've done here is we've just said we're going to send a request. I probably clicked too quickly. I'm going to pick a request out of my collections. I want that one. Thanks very much. And then I'm just going to create another shape. So you can't see what this shape does, but all it does is log everything out to a terminal. So I get effectively a log of everything that goes on when it's executing. When I click start, you get this nice little visual reputation. It's doing something. The API is not that slow. I don't know. They've obviously got some lovely delays in there, but it's just sending some data backwards and forwards. So it's quite simple to set up a basic request. In order for that to work, obviously you need to have a request in the first place. So the requests need to exist within your within a collection within Postman. So this one's a really simple request. There's a wonderful open API called OpenBreweryDB. Yay. It's probably more useful if you live in the States because it's all about breweries and little lovely places you can go and get a craft beer in America. But it's quite a useful little API for playing around. So you can see here I'm just kind of getting a page of data. I'm saying how many items I want in my page. Nothing overly complex. But all of these parameters, when I then pass those through from the flow, I get to feed those values in. So not only are those global variables in Postman, I can inject those into the request when I'm calling it. The other thing that you do, and a lot of people kind of skip this quite a lot, is saving examples from Postman. So when you make a request, just take that request, save it as an example. This is a good request, thank you very much. And most people kind of don't do very much with it unless they're a tester. But as a person using flows, it's quite useful because what flows is going to do is it's going to use that example message to effectively deserialize and tell you what the shape of that data is in the next few steps you get. It's changed a little bit since I first started using it. So sometimes it has a list, sometimes it has a tuple. And when it's a tuple or a dictionary, it's a little bit hard to work with. But mostly it's quite useful, and I think there's a little bit more digging around I need to do to find out exactly why it goes, no, this is not a list, this is a dictionary, and then you have to type things in. But you save those, it lets you do stuff. As I said, you can chain blocks. So this is me doing what I wanted to do. I mean, my project, sadly, that I'm working on isn't about beer and putting beers into my CMS of choice. But it is about getting this data in. Dan's creating a disco. Cheers, Dan. Wicked. You've got a strobe and a crystal ball thing. Oh, right, yeah. So, where was I? Somewhere around here. Yeah, so this is what I'm trying to do here, is essentially push a load of information into my CMS. So to get a content item created, I need to do two things in my CMS. One is just create the stub for it, and the other one is say, right, I need a language version. It's going to be English, it's going to be French, whatever, so I'll populate my language version. And what I've got going on in this flow, I'm going to move over and annoy John because he can't move the camera. Or can he? You can kind of see we've got the send request. It's got a for each. I know that what comes back from breweries is a list. So I'm just going to iterate through the items in that list in JSON. And for each one of those, I go in here, I create a piece of data, and I pass it to here. This creates a content item for me in my CMS. And then I've got this wonderful little dotted line here. And that basically says these two things are going to happen, but this one can't happen until that one's happened. So it kind of changed them along. They use the same piece of data, but they happen, they're the best panning tool ever. They just kind of happen in sequence, and it makes life a lot easier. So it's a fairly simple concept to get hold of. Things get a little bit more complex. I'll go on about some durables and stuff first. So durables are the way of storing data. There's two ways, in fact. Durables is one. When you create a durable, you pass them from one request to the next. They're effectively pointers to a bit of data. But they go with your flow. So as you create them, you can modify them, you can add new ones to the set, but they're kind of there and they constantly follow over. They can be simple values from your data. They can be little brief calculations. They can be more complex. The editor for this is challenging, I would say, when you're trying to type stuff in. You can quite easily click on something and then it will decide that's what you meant, and you didn't really want to do that. You were just trying to expand the drop-down list or something. So it's a bit of a fun thing to play with. It's certainly an area for improvement. But these durables, I say, they're just simple bits of data. They can be strings, numbers, booleans, nothing particularly complicated. And then we've got these data objects, these structured objects. And as you can tell, these are a bit more involved. We can create records and tuples and various key value pairs, etc. This effectively, you serialize that to JSON, you know what you're going to get. That's going to be your body for a request into another call. And those, they just kind of sit around essentially within the call, and you can use them. So long as you use them and collect them all up, that's basically what we've got here, this create shape. It creates that record, and then it tells these two shapes that when they're ready to, they can execute. And then you get more complicated ones. So this is pretty much the same as the previous flow, which was kind of looping through my objects. But what this is actually doing is got a whole bunch of extra stuff going on here. And this was quite painful to get working, and sorry, John, I'll go into that in a minute. But what I'm actually doing is paging through data. So you saw on the request it was a paged API. I tell it what page number I want, I tell it how many items are in the page, and it's just going to kind of return me that data. And what we're doing here is we're sending that initial request, and then we create some durables off the back of it, one of which counts how many items are in the list, and one of which increments a lovely little numeric value that tells me what page I want to have next. And then that's all linked up to this condition block. And I think you can possibly just make out in the condition that it says if the page is less than or equal to 10, because this takes a while and there's lots of pages, or if the page is, did I put true or false? Because it's really hard to read. I'm pretty sure that says true. Doesn't work very well in dark mode for booleans, just so you know. Dark purple against black is it's an interesting choice. But yeah, so basically once that condition's met, it will then go back around and it'll make the request again. And that whole condition, as you can see with that dotted line, is only triggered when the for each completes. So it does the for each, does all of its stuff, and then goes, right, let's get the next page and deal with that. And it's quite awesome. And then, yeah, the for each is just creating data in my CMS. So what I wanted to do next is, this is going to be quite quick, but I've got this in Postman, and I was going to just kind of quickly show you through it working. So this is my CMS. If people want, I can talk to you lots about content. So what you can see here, there's literally nothing in this database. This is my content inventory. There's not a lot going on in there. I haven't got anything. If we go back to Postman, the flows are just down here in this weird little network starred icon, and this is my flow. So this is the one you got on the screen there. So if I zoom out, it's pretty much the same, except I got rid of the terminal because it wasn't really doing anything. And we click run, and this will start going through and running stuff. So you can kind of see, I hope, all of those lines doing things. Yep, it's all going through, and it takes quite a while to run because I don't know why, to be honest. It should be fairly quick because all of the APIs on this are actually rapid. But it's just going through, and this is going to run 5 times. So there'll be like, I don't know, I think my page size is 20. So it's going to try and create 100 records in my CMS. So when I look at it in a minute, he says, it will all be kind of set up and lovely. So I'll leave that running, and I'll go back to the slides and just go over some things that really could have been better. So all I've got to do is find my slides, which I have no idea where I put them, so let's just open them again. There we go. So where were we? So things that could have been better, basically. Naming of blocks would be amazing. When you've got a big flow and you've got lots of things called send requests and make data and create durables, and it's not particularly helpful, to be honest. You can drop text on the canvas, but it doesn't really help. So you know, if they could put some, and there's some suggestions in the discussion boards on GitHub, naming blocks would be lovely, make it very, very readable. The variable editor is built to torment, I think. I think that's roughly the angle they've come from, is like, how can we injure people mentally? And it's kind of, if anyone wants to see it, I'll show you later. It probably will send me into a spiral of rage, but I can kind of show you through it. It's just a little bit cumbersome, a little bit clunky. The response parsing, as I say, at the moment, it's sometimes has a bit of an issue with trying to decide what you're getting out of your data, which means, you know, further down the line, everything's effectively an anonymous type and it can't quite figure out what it's trying to do, and then that gets kind of irritating. Calling other flows from within a flow, amazing. Doesn't do that yet, but it's on the wish list of things for it to do. But that would mean, so something like you could create a flow for authorizing an API call, and then just call that repeatedly and chain it off and call it from many other flows and reuse your flows essentially. You can kind of do that now if you make slightly more complex requests inside your collection as just a normal request, but it'd be nice to put it in a flow and visualize it. There was another one as well, I forget what it was, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we can go and have a look and see if it's finished running, because it should have done by now. Yep, So you can see the start button's finished, and then what that's then gone and done is back in content page now. There's my items, all lovely in there. Hurrah! All moved over. I don't have to write any code. I just have to deal with the variable editor, and that's it. That's my view of flows. It's a nice tool. It's got a lot of potential. It's also got some really frustrating things in it that are worth feeding back on, so that hopefully they can improve those things. But yeah, definitely worth having a look at. I can show anyone the annoying variable editor if they want afterwards. But as for now, thank you very much. We're going to take a 10-minute break, I think. In fact, I know we're going to take a 10-minute break. It'll probably be slightly longer because that's how it normally rolls. But thank you very much. Go refresh.